content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. John Mintz does not provide tax or legal advice. All decisions regarding the tax or legal implications of your investments should be made in connection with your independent tax or legal advisor.
Have you ever wondered why the rich get richer and others don't? Could it be that a small percentage of the population seek out others to find, study, and execute on legal loopholes that exist within our financial life and make it easier for them to prosper? The answer is a resounding yes. This is the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. John has spent a lifetime researching and mastering the financial loopholes that he believes should be available to everyone. Join us as we explore different strategies that help you get farther faster towards building and enjoying a prosperous retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of the Wealthy with John Mintz. John, my friend, how are you?
Hey, Eric, good day to you. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. I'm glad to be back with you. It's been a while. We've been apart for a few weeks, but you're coming back with a great podcast. Good information. I'm not going to spoil it because, you sent me what the kind of your theme is, but I know we're going to start off with a little something different today.
Yeah, we are. I've labeled this confidence and protection versus market chaos. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
There's a lot of chaos going on. That's all I know.
Oh, really? Just
well,
a little bit?
I've noticed. See, I'm pretty smart, John. I've noticed chaos kind of around the world, not just the States. It's around the world, right?
Yeah, you don't even have to turn on the media anymore. You could just go to the grocery store and see chaos. So
that's true, yeah. Well, especially Walmart. Not picking on Walmart, but yes, I am. It's definitely chaos.
Yeah, this is true. Anyway, let me just I like to do this every now and then, and this is one of those episodes where I want to just kind of say we're recording this on April 15th, 2022. And I'm saying that because I want to give some people state of the country, state of the affairs from an economic standpoint real quick, because I've been doing that in the last few episodes. So it came out this week. Inflation is now increased year over year by 8.5%. For the fifth straight month, it is a record high, a 41-year record high. Wholesale inflation came out this week at 11.3%. That's not a 41-year high. That's the highest ever.
So what do you mean by that, wholesale inflation?
So wholesale inflation means it's the price of goods before the individuals, the wholesalers. It's how much the cost of their products are going up.
So the grocery store that buys their products from the wholesaler before it even gets marked up at the grocery store to us, that's what you mean? Yep.
So what it means is it's a leading indicator to potentially what our inflation is going to be, because if they're charging more, in theory, that's what's coming eventually to us. Some of that doesn't get passed down to the consumer just because they know a consumer at a certain point in time is going to stop buying something if it gets, the price gets too high. Mm-hmm. But it does say, if that wholesale inflation number is not lower than our number, well, it's probably likely that inflation is not going to decline soon.
Yeah.
I think that's why that's a key number. Mortgage rates, which we've talked about in recent episodes, now have gone, I think in 2 or 3 episodes ago, we had talked about how it gone from 2.5% in November to 4%. Well, now this week they are at 5%.
Yep.
And now the Fed has come out this week, and they're no longer trying to be cautious about talking about future interest rate increases. They're saying the next 3, they meet every 6 weeks. The next one will be the first week of May. And they're saying the next 3 are going to be probably no less than 50 basis points each time.
Good grief.
And so in previous episodes, as I have said, that they've gotten the procrastination of this has caught up with them, and they no longer have the option not to do this. Mm-hmm. And the other I saw, I don't know if you know who Larry Summers is, but he came out this week with an interesting piece of factual data, and he said, in the history of our country, in every case where inflation has been over 4%, which it is, and unemployment is below 5% at the same time, which it is right now, in every single case in our history, we have had a recession within 2 years. And of course, all of the CEOs of large companies, most recent one I saw was the CEO of Home Depot, are basically saying that a recession is coming. So we're going to have these very high interest rates and inflation followed by a recession. You know, the markets are starting to feel it now. You've seen the bond market is starting to deteriorate. And I believe it's probably going to be the first crash, and stocks will follow thereafter. But just, I guess, I'm providing this information for folks that aren't in the know, so to speak, so that they just kind of know what's going on out there, so they know, hopefully, how to prepare for it. So anyway, how's that make you feel today?
Oh, it's warm and fuzzy, my friend, warm and fuzzy. No, it's one of those things where you've been talking about this for a while, not this specific subject, but the spending that's been going on as far as the stimulus packages and all the different things and how the businesses were affected by COVID, by the pandemic, how, individuals, families were affected, how employment has been affected. And I'm not going to say it's the perfect storm. I actually hate that, that phrase itself, because it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form. It's horrendous, right? But it's one of those things where you've been talking about this for over a year with me specifically, and teaching the audience different things, different strategies. And it's coming to a head. And I know today you're talking, you're the one that mentioned it, confidence and protection versus market chaos. Well, we've already got the chaos part, so I'd like to have a little bit more confidence and maybe some more protection, my friend.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to hone in today. I see, you've heard me say, I believe that I was put on the planet for this purpose, is to try to give people hope where there is none. And so I'm excited to do that today. Yeah, we have been talking about this a lot. I've been warning folks on these podcasts for a while with you that this is going to happen, and now it's happening, and doesn't make it feel any better or worse. It's just here. We need to do something about it. So, I have folks come to me in all sorts of ways, through workshops. I had another one last night, direct referrals, because I've been doing this a long time, social media, professionals, all different ways. But no matter which way they come to me, the first time we sit down, we try to accomplish the same thing, which is we're trying to figure out, why are they here, what's important to them, and are we a good fit for each other? And so during that meeting, that's what we're doing, and we're finding out, after we find out what's important to them, okay, what is it they hope, if we meet 1 time, 2 times, 4 times, what are they hoping to accomplish? And I was meeting with a lady a few weeks back, and it's her and her husband. They're in their early 70s, and she's still working, by the way. And they came in the first meeting and sat down, and I asked the question I always ask: why are you here? What brought you here? What is it that was so pressing that you felt like you need to invest an hour or so of your time with me? And she said that something that kind of really made me step back and pause. And she said, John, we've been searching for confidence over chaos. And that was her exact response. And so I have actually been using that a lot lately, because it's 3 words, but it's really, really powerful words, right?
Yeah.
And it came from my client. I can't even take credit for it. Whether you're talking to an accountant, or you're talking to an attorney, or you're talking to a financial advisor, et cetera, some kind of professionals, when you go to them, they ask you specific questions, and they want specific answers, because if they don't get those, they can't help you, right?
True.
But I believe it works both ways. See, I believe not only should they ask us those questions as consumers, but, we should be asking them specific questions And we should expect specific answers as well.
Agreed.
And at a certain point in time, I've already written out the podcast, but a certain one of these times, we're gonna chat about the questions that you should be asking your financial advisor. But I want to tell you another story about a lady. And she came in, met with me, and I was talking to her the first time about Roth Conversions, which is where we can convert a taxable account into a Roth account and do so where that account then becomes tax-free for the rest of her life.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in real quick, John, because you have covered this in previous podcasts. You've covered this extensively. So I just want the listening audience, if you're just joining us, go back and you're going to learn exactly what he's talking about right there. Great example. Sorry to interrupt your story, but I wanted to make sure they knew that you've really taught on that subject a lot.
That's a good point. And there's several podcasts that touch on that. And I do recommend you go back and listen to that. This will make a lot more sense if you do. However, the end of the story, the lady left our first meeting, and we had scheduled another meeting, more what we call a strategy meeting. But she left that first meeting, and then she called me a few days later and said, "Hey, I just want you to know, I called Vanguard." That's where her money was. Mm-hmm. I called Vanguard, and I told them that we were thinking about doing this Roth conversion. They told me not to do it.
Really?
Yeah. And I said, "Why?" That's what I said. "Really? Why?" She said, "Oh, because they told me it was going to push me into the next, or the higher tax bracket, the next tax bracket." And I said, "Well, okay. Well, we don't want to do that. Well, can you send me the calculations that they did?" And she said, long pause, "Oh, they didn't do any calculations." Okay. And then I asked the next question. That's why I said, okay, next question. So the next question is, and now I'm asking specific questions, right? Which she should have been doing to them. So I asked the next question. I said, well, what tax bracket of yours did they say that you were going to go from and to? "Oh, well, we didn't talk about that." Mm-hmm. So they just told you were going to go in a higher tax bracket. You just took their word for it and moved on. Yep. Yeah. And so this is what I mean by asking. We have to get good at the art of questioning, as they call it. We've got to get better at asking questions for the purpose of A, understanding, but B, validating, right? Like Reagan used to say about Gorbachev. They ask him, "Do you trust Gorbachev?" "Oh, sure, I trust him, but I verify." Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of what we need to be doing. I had another lady come in just recently, actually, and we are on our third meeting with her, and she said, "You know what? I've been really enjoyed meeting with you guys, and I've decided to move on." And I said, "Well, you told me in previous meetings you've met with several other advisors before you came to us. Mm-hmm. So why did you want to move on?" She said, "The other advisors, all of them, when I met with them and I asked them specific questions, I would get general answers. And you give me specific answers." And that was it. So I'm not saying that to impress anyone. I'm just saying to impress upon people that it really does make a difference. So I'm going to ask a specific question for our listeners today, right? And so we talked about how we're living in a world of chaos, right? A world of noise. You can just pick up any social media, any newspaper, listen to the radio. You're gonna hear some chaos or noise, right? The first question is, do you crave confidence over chaos? Do you wish for certainty over uncertainty, or known versus unknown? And if you do, here is a follow-up question for you. Which of the following two scenarios would upset you more? If you got out of the markets today, and in the next 12 months, it went up 50%. Or if you stayed in the markets, and in the next 12 months, it went down 50%. And that's a really simple, specific question, right?
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not going to answer for the entire audience because they have their own ideas, emotions, and thoughts. But my first thing, when you ask that first question, I'd be like, man, I would be frustrated that I missed that 50% upswing, right? I would be frustrated. I might even kick myself for pulling out of the market, right? But the market going down and my money still being in there, down 50%, losing that's not just frustration, that's panic, right? That to me, that is okay. The plans that I've made, now they've just gone out the window and I have to make other plans. Because that's a huge chunk for anybody to lose, especially somebody close. I'm not quite close to retirement. I just turned 48 last week, and I've got a few years left. But somebody who's 57, 60, and that happens, man, that's scary. That's scary.
It is. It is. Somebody that's, I call it retiree or pre-retiree. The pre-retiree can be somebody north of 50, right? But yeah, scared, fear. I mean, I had a workshop last night, and we had 33 seats available. We had 109 reservations.
Oh, well, yeah, packed them in there.
No, we didn't. We don't have room.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Fire marshal will get you.
Unfortunately, but it just tells you there's a lot of folks that are scared and worried right now. So I guess to follow up to that previous question, if you answered the latter of the two, which was, it would be worse for me. I would be more upset if I stayed in the markets and in the next 12 months it went down 50%, like you said. If you answered the latter two, then it's time to protect, right? So you answered the question. If you answered the first one, then there's a different strategy. But if you answered the second one, it's time to protect. By protect, I mean protect your lifestyle income, protect your planned and unplanned expenses, protect your fun, which is important to a lot of people, it is to me, and then protect your legacy if that's important to you. So, there's a lot of ways to do this. So how can we do this? So here comes the hope, right? So how can we do this? Well, we can't do it with bonds. So
yeah.
You've heard me talk a lot about bonds recently on this show. And unfortunately, it's coming to fruition. It's hard to pull up a bond fund right now that's not down 5 to 8% for the year. We're talking now. We're talking a bond, and I'm not saying 5 to 8% for the whole year. We're saying 3.5 months
so far, just the year so far.
And so, like we've always said, the simple way to understand bonds is they work in direct correlation in the opposite direction of interest rates. So if interest rates are going to rise historically fast, that means bonds are going to drop historically fast. And they are, right? And we're just getting started with this. So if you're in bonds, if your way of protecting your retirement, which has worked, by the way, for the last 20 years, the old 60-40 split. I'm moving to retirement. I'm going to be 60% in securities or stocks. I'm going to be 40% in bonds. I'll take out 4% a year and I'm good to go. Well, that's worked for the last 20 years prior to, with the exception of the double crash in the 2000s. It's worked. Because why? Because interest rates have been falling all these years. That means bonds have done well. Well, that was then, this is now, as they say. So we can't protect with bonds right now. Well, then how? Well, there's different tools out there. My favorite one in this particular situation called a fixed indexed annuity. And we're not talking about your dad's annuity here. I'll give you an example. There is a company, actually two of them right now, because the annuity, the fixed indexed annuity market is becoming highly competitive because the boomers are craving this stuff. They're learning more about it and they're craving it. These two companies that I'm going to mention here in a minute, I'm not going to mention their names, but these two companies were fighting it out for 1 and 2 last year. And just the two companies, that's 2 of 3,000, by the way. Just those two did almost $9 billion in sales last year, 1 year. But these two companies have been battling out for market share, and they both have a product, an income benefit product now that pays a 35% upfront bonus.
What?
Yes. So if you put in $1 million into a fixed index annuity of this type, they will give you $350,000 bonus upfront.
Okay, how can they possibly do that?
It's all in the design, and there's these guys that wear tape are on their glasses, and they've got the pocket protectors. We call them actuaries.
Actuaries, yep. I knew you were going that route.
They're smarter than 10 of us put together.
Mm-hmm.
But they study mortality rates and all that good stuff. But they know the numbers that they can produce to be able to offer these. Now, this isn't an ongoing bonus. The bonus for this product is usually somewhere between 15 to 22%. Mm-hmm. But like I said, they're battling for market share right now, and they don't want to lose their number one status. So right now it's 35. It's not going to be up there for long, but it's the first time I've ever seen it that high.
Wow.
And again, this is on an income benefit annuity we're talking about. Other kind of new and improved thing is they have uncapped growth. The old annuities, meaning annuities that are older than 3 or 4 years, most of them had caps on how much you could grow based on the index you were tied to. So if you were tied to the S&P 500 index, and that index grew 20%, but your annuity had a cap of 3%, well, you only got 3%. It frustrated a lot of people. So if you talked to somebody in the past and they said, "Oh, annuities are no good," well, maybe that was then. This is now, right? And so they're not staying up on the times because they no longer have those caps. These same types of annuities, many of them have no fees. And I get the question you asked earlier, and every single time I tell someone, okay, there's this, and they always ask the same thing you did. How do they do that?
Yeah.
And I always answer that question with a question, and then they get it. I say, if you go down to your bank, let's say it's Chase Bank, you go down to your bank and you purchase a CD. They're going to pay you an interest rate, not very much, although it's getting a little higher now, but they're going to pay you an interest rate, and you're not going to pay any fees. How do they do that? They always know. Right?
They're making money on my money.
There you go. See, you knew too.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
exactly where
I get it.
Right? So I go and put my money in the CD, they pay me 0.5%, and then they turn around and loan it to you on a credit card for 18. It is my money.
Yeah.
It's not their money. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So they're very good at leveraging money.
Yeah.
Right? And so life insurance companies would have way more money than banks ever thought of. I mean, life insurance companies lend money to banks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're just a lot better at the game than banks are. Right? And so they have the ability to take the monies and make good use of it over time.
Yeah.
That's the simplest way I could. Now, there's a much more complicated way to explain that, but that's how they do it.
No, I like that one. I like the simple explanation. That works.
Yeah, exactly. And my intentions are not to make this a really long podcast today. I just want to give folks an update on how things are going or how they're not going. Mm-hmm. And then kind of give folks that just know that there is some hope out there. You need to be talking to someone. If you're not, they'll saying if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, kind of thing. So if you're not talking to someone, if you're a retiree or pre-retiree or anyone else, if you're not talking to someone, if you're not gaining knowledge, you need to be doing this. And kudos to those that are listening into this. You've already taken the first step, right?
Yeah. Well, let me go back to something, John, because something's been bothering me ever since you brought it up in this podcast. Yeah, John, I gotta say something because something you said earlier in the podcast has stuck with me. It's been bothering me, and you told the story about that lady who, she went and talked to somebody, and I'm not going to mention the name again, but about doing a Roth conversion, and they just told her it's going to put you in the highest tax bracket. Don't do it, and I 100% agree with you. I'm not arguing with you at all. I 100% agree with you that we need to ask more questions, ask better questions. But here's the problem, is that most people don't understand or know those questions to ask. And that's why I think it's so vitally important. And what I love about working with you is that you are, not only are you answering the questions that people have, you're filling in the blanks for the questions that they don't even know that they have. You're giving them all the information. The failure here in that lady's situation is the fact that the company that she called was clueless as to her entire situation, treated her like a number because it's a call-in center and it's just some random person she's getting a hold of most likely. And they're like, oh, well, no, that's going to push you up in a higher tax bracket or the highest tax bracket without truly diving into her specific situation. And if you are talking to a quote unquote, and I'm using air quotes on a podcast here, John, this is very effective, a quote unquote professional that is in charge of your money, if they tell you, oh, that's going to push you to the highest tax bracket, you would assume, and we all know what assume means, but you would assume that they know what they're talking about and that they have your best interest in mind. But that's just not the case.
It's not.
And so
it's just not.
No, it's not.
I'm sad to say it.
Yeah. And well, there's a lot of industries like that. It's not just this industry when it comes to these larger corporations. That's why it's so important to have a one-on-one relationship with somebody, a professional that's a fiduciary that is doing what you're doing. So before we end the podcast, I don't know if you're ready to end this podcast now, but please give your contact information so people can actually have a conversation with someone who will put them first.
Yeah, I will. And it's interesting that you say that because we have employees when we hire new employees. The first thing we do is we start untraining them because we have to untrain them before we can train them. We have to take away their preconceived ideas about how they think things work in the world to help them understand that's not how we do business. So, for example, we call on behalf of clients a lot because they don't know the questions to ask. And so we get on the phone with them and then we call a custodian, Vanguard, whoever it is, and we start asking questions. Well, we have proven by testing it that if we ask someone for certain information and they say they can't give it to us or they don't know it, we've proven if we hang up and call back and get somebody different, in most cases, we'll get the information.
Oh, geez.
It's that bad. And so if you know that going in, and I don't think most people are doing it intentionally. There's just so much turnover right now in all areas of employment. And there's so many people working from their home, which is also added to the miscommunication, but inside the employers, that you have to kind of go in with the approach that I'm going to have to be like a bird dog, looking for a bird.
Yeah.
When I'm go looking for what I need, because the first person I talk to, I'm probably not going to get the information that I need. I may have to go 2 or 3 levels.
Yeah.
Which takes time, and we're all busy, but it's worth it. And so, we've talked about this, and, let me close by just saying, what I believe folks need in retirement is pretty simple. I think they need guaranteed income, whether that be Social Security, a pension, and by the way, both Social Security and pensions are annuities. Most people don't even realize that. If you look at the paperwork, it says it right on the paperwork, single life annuity or whatever. And then they need, if that's not enough income to surpass their required lifestyle income, then they need another annuity, an income benefit annuity to supplement that. And they need one that will increase and keep up with inflation.
Yes. Because
a lot of pensions and Social Security do not increase, unfortunately. And then the second thing that most people miss most people miss this one, Eric, is they need simplicity.
Why do you say that?
Well, as we get older, it gets harder and harder to keep up with all the intricacies of having to manage a conglomeration of stocks and bonds and funds and REITs and this and that. And when you're younger, and even if you're, you got an engineering mindset, maybe you can keep up with all that. But, by the time you get into your 80s, you may not be as sharp as you once were, or you may be a little bit more forgetful. I'm 58 and still already somewhat forgetful. But by the time we get to our 90s, I mean, heck, we're just hoping to have a good bowel movement.
Yeah.
And so we're certainly not thinking about keeping up with our investments. And so the more that we can simplify that and kind of put it on cruise control, I think the lower the stress and the more likely we're going to live to 90 in the first place. So anyway, that's my 2 cents for today on how to create some confidence in this world of chaos. And I hope it's helped someone along the way.
Well, I believe it's going to help a lot of people along the way, and what'll help more is contact information. So
yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a link at the bottom of this podcast. If you can click on that, it'll take you straight into our website when you can contact us there, or you can call us directly at 817-225-6260.
All right, John, always a pleasure. You know what? It's Good Friday. Have a wonderful weekend this weekend.
Likewise to you, and God is good all the time.
All the time. That's right. And thank you for listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when John comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it really easy to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And who couldn't use a little more confidence and protection? Please share this podcast so they can learn how that can happen. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at the Secrets of the Wealthy, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of John Mintz. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.